With that, would you please give a big round warm of applause to Alexis Sikorsky?
Alexis, thank you for being here. So first of all, context. These guys in their workbooks have seen a little bit of your kind of bio, kind of case history, but give us a journey. Did you, I'm curious, I always find it fascinating. Were you always entrepreneurial? What was kind of your self-identity? Were you always intended to be an entrepreneur and eventually you found the right business? Or were you inclined towards the product, the software, and then you naturally became a business owner and you developed that skill set later? What was kind of the dominant identity driving you?
Oh, that's a very interesting question to start with. So I'm going to try to not use the whole 30 minutes to answer that. First company I created, I was 15. Export-import company.
At 15?
At 15, yeah. Obviously, massive failure. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've been an employee for 14 months in my whole life. So yeah, always been an entrepreneur, always knew that's what I wanted to do.
What was your reason for getting fired after 14 months?
I bought the company.
There we go.
I didn't get fired, I actually bought the company. Then it got bankrupt, but later. So, so that's, I'm going to give you little hints of all you guys. Like, never, ever be afraid to fail. And a lot of my life story is about failure. Way more of my life story is about failure than it is about success. Like, if you have one success at the end, it's pretty much payback for all the failures, right? And if you have no success, well, then you're pretty much screwed. But usually, like, don't be afraid of failure. So you live in an Anglo-Saxon world where failure is way more accepted than where I came from, right? I came from French-speaking Switzerland and French. So basically, it's really hard to fail there because they really, you have to struggle to get back on your feet. Here, you're in a culture where actually failure is way more accepted. So take advantage of that. Never be afraid of failure. Sorry, I'm going to stop pontifying in a second.
In a second, not yet.
Not yet.
So what did what form? Take us back. I mean, over lunchtime we were having a quick connection. It's the first time I met Alexis, and the first part of your career sounded horrendously miserable and painful, or kind of meandering along. Or talk to us about some of those painful failures in the early days and how you ended up, probably, especially in the software industry.
Well, basically in software, well, no. First of all, you have one major cause of failure is when people don't want to buy the stuff you make. And that's like, you all can be absolutely amazing in what you're doing, and suddenly people don't buy it, or stop buying it, or don't buy it expensive enough. So the first 3 years of my company was actually successful. It was small. There were 2 of us who were doing bespoke development for internet applications. So we had clients, they would pay us X amount of money for X amount of days. Obviously, we would undersell at the beginning because that's what you should do, right? You should focus on client satisfaction way before you focus on getting money in the company. But the first like 3-4 years were pretty successful. And then we switched to being a software company because we bought a software company. And like them, it's balancing, right? You balance your cost and your revenues. So from 2000, when I started, to 2008, it was slow growth. It was okay. We had rough times. I made tons of mistakes, like literally tons of mistakes. And then 2008, the financial crisis hit. And all our clients, 100% of our clients were banks, and namely private banks. So imagine in all your respective business, I don't know what you guys are doing, but imagine suddenly you're facing a market where your clients are not buying anything, like literally zero. From 2008 to 2010, we had zero revenue from sales. So thank God we had maintenance, we were selling guys, so it allows us to survive, and thank God we had a little bit of a war chest. But like, yeah, shit happens. And took us literally till 2014 until the private equity came in to recover.
Okay, good. Well, I want to go into private equity, but before we do that, let's go back to you're saying you bought a company. What caused you? So you started out in one thing and you pivoted. What was the insight, or what was the moment that caused you to go, actually, there's an opportunity over here. I should buy this software company. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. First time was, as most things in life, was an accident. One of the employee that were working for us was previously working for this company and calls, hey, this is a good company, but it went bankrupt. So now the IP of the product and all the contract are sitting with the government. They try to fire sale it. They don't really know anything about it. And I went into looking, and it was an amazing deal. And from now on, I would say 90% of the growth of the company came from outside acquisition, and 10% was organic growth. So I always...
Just push pause there. Listen to that as a statement. 90% of the growth came from acquisition. Now, so what we're talking about in the last session, I just think, look, Alexis, when you start to piece together more of this story, you're going to say, look, 90% of the growth came from outside acquisition. Now, that first one was fortuitous circumstances. There was an employee who'd been let go because the company he worked for went bankrupt. And because it had gone into bankruptcy and the insolvency practitioner, or whatever country this was in, the government are trying to sell off the assets, fire sale, but they don't know what they're selling. And Alex has a look at it, and it represents a great deal. And so it's a little bit more precise, but how do you make decisions? How do you know it was a great deal? I mean, whatever, and you may not be able to speak to it, but whatever the price was for that assets, how do you know that that represented great value for the assets that you're buying? What was the thought process?
I'm going to apologize for the ridiculousness of my answer, but it is the truth. I just know.
Okay.
It's okay. You'll meet in your life two kinds of leaders, right? You'll have the people that put everything through an Excel spreadsheet and need proof on anything. And I respect these people, and some of them are amazing entrepreneurs. It's just not who I am. It's always been interacting with other human beings. So I interviewed all the employees of this company before buying. The numbers are numbers, right? It's no rocket science. Numbers are usually pretty easy. But the people behind. So I interviewed that. At the time, the company, I think, had 15 employees. I interviewed all of them, like Blanc, 2 hours with each single one of them, from the receptionist to the coders to the guy sitting with the clients. I interviewed all of them. And then I went to the government who was selling the asset and said, you're going to receive lots of offer, and our offer is not going to be the highest. But I'm the one guarantee that I'm going to hire all the employees. All the employees going to rehired. And obviously, governments love that kind of thing. And we did it. So the guys were good. And then I got to talk to the clients, and the clients were good. And that's how I made my decision. Numbers are always good, right? You know that. You see stuff all the time. The numbers are always good.
I like that. It's smart, right? If you think about when we're talking about on the buy side and the sell side, what the government, the seller wanted, which Alexis spotted, it wasn't going to be the high offer. But what could he give them that they did want? Well, they wanted continued employment. Because, of course, then the government gets to look good, they've not had a failure, they've saved jobs, but then, of course, they also reap in the form of taxes, right? So, brilliant. So you acquired this company, and was it all plain sailing, or this acquisition was right in just before the financial crisis?
No, it was before. That was 2003. Apologies. So suddenly I'm literally actually running two companies, right? One a bespoke development company that has probably like 8-10 employees at the time, and now a software company that has 15 employees. So software company, the way it used to work, it changed a little bit now, but the way it used to work is you sell your software for a certain amount, and then the client make a contract with you and give you like 15-20% of that amount every year to maintain the product and develop it and everything. And then I'm looking and say, wait a second. On one hand, I have a low margin, non-scalable business because every time I need a guy to sell a guy, right? So it was like, and the other hand, say, oh, this software thing looks really, really good. It's like almost like pharma, right? Like once you have your initial investment, client number 5 to 10 are pretty much free money. And then you have a step, we need to hire people, but the margin were much better. So I got rid of all the bespoke part and focused on the software development.
And this software ultimately was doing front office and or back office, or doing system software for banks.
Yeah,
like
private
banks. So you want to talk about a tough market to break into. Try persuading as a young up and coming company that a bank to trust you with a whole host of data and a whole host of issues that come with that. So let's jump forward to where you were just speaking to private equity. So fast forward, you got through this terrible spell post financial crisis when the banks weren't buying anything, and then you alluded to private equity. So how were you approached? Did you approach them? How did private equity enter the picture?
So fast forward 2014, we just recovered from the financial crisis. The company makes, I think, 12, 14 million revenues, 100 employees, I think, give or take.
What was the profit?
We would optimistically, with very good creative accounting, call it break even. So
Speak to that, because that had to be
okay,
a very
I
stressful
speak
time.
for you guys when you want to buy a company or when you want to sell your company. There is no such thing as a break-even company. When somebody shows you a break-even company, that means they're losing money. If they're showing profit, they're usually making more because that means they're trying to avoid tax. If they show you break-even, that means they're losing money. There's no such thing as a break-even company. So it was creatively, it was stressful, Topher. It was like mortgage my house. Yeah. Basically, we put all the family's money, including my mother money, in the company. Yeah, it was stressful. We were down like probably 6, 7, 8 million engulfed in the company. And
that's very shoe dog. Like Phil Knight, with Nike, you just think, God, when is it going to get easy for him? You had to have had that same kind of thing. Like, when can I breathe?
Every day. Every day. But you know that. You all feel like that, even if your company is successful, right? It's like, there's one exercise you should never, you're an entrepreneur as well, and you too. The exercise you never can do if you're an entrepreneur is to calculate your hourly revenue, right? Right? You try that. Try calculate your hourly revenue and say, God, I wish I was a housekeeper. Yeah. Or a waiter in a restaurant. Because for all our company, starting small to medium to big, unless maybe 2 of you are going to end up with public company. But keep in mind, you make your money when you sell. Your money is the exit. Anything before that is survival. If you're lucky, your company is reach a point where you can have a decent living from the salary you get from your company. Usually it doesn't happen because all this money would be actually more efficiently invested in growing the company than paying yourself. So we all tend to stay at the minimum living conditions to grow, because growth is the actual key. And I want to talk back 2 seconds about acquisition. Probably lots of you have been through the process of trying to get money for your company. Outside money, banks, loans, friends and family. It's very hard. It's in every country in the world, in every financial institution, people don't want to loan money to company. And they're right. It's way more profitable to loan money to somebody to buy a house that has a tangible asset. And if you want to loan money to a company, then you have to evaluate it and you have to be right and the risk is huge for the bank. And they don't want to charge you with the risk because then the loan becomes unsustainable. So that's hard. Every time you want to buy a company, that has 2 characteristics. One, it has to be profitable, and 2, it has to be more profitable than your own company, or at least equally profitable, so you don't dilute your profit. But if you get these 2 criteria for an acquisition, then money becomes so easy. They literally, after I did my first acquisition was a very, very minimal bank loan. I think I paid literally for Logical Access, the first company I bought, I think we paid $500,000 or $600,000, and we borrowed $200,000 from that. From that point on, once a year, my banker will call me and say, hey, don't you want to buy something? Seriously. Yeah. And to that day, I sold everything. I'm nobody in the business world anymore. Bankers call me and say, hey, do you have a project? I have another 100 million this year. Don't you want to buy something? So that's absolutely key. Getting money to grow organically your company, it's almost impossible. Getting money for an LBO, for a leverage buyout, it's easy. People want to give you money. So like really every time, I did 5 major acquisitions through the life of the company. There's one thing I'm good at. I'm good at merging teams together. That's a skill. That's a particular skill. If you have that, good. If you don't, find somebody in your company who does. Because when you acquire a company, lots of acquisitions fail because you don't have somebody who can. You have different culture, right? You've been taught a lot. You've been in business school and all that stuff. But merging culture is difficult. So that's one trick. But if you can get over that, yeah, it's the best way to go, in my opinion.
So were you approached by private equity looking to raise cash, or did they approach you, or did you approach them?
No. So yeah, sorry, I forgot the question. That's 2014. Companies break even, showing growth, major growth through acquisition, very slow organic growth, break even. Get a phone call. So when you get to a certain point, I don't know if some of you are already at that point or not yet, you get a phone call from private equity on average twice a week. Say, I want to buy your company. They don't actually want to buy your company. They want to know what's going on. They want to be sure they are around when you do good. And for some reason, I took this phone call. The guys were French, which I thought would make it easier for me. I was wrong. But it ended up making it easier, but the beginning was a bit hard. And there were tech entrepreneurs who sold their company and started private equity with that money, so they understood my business. So it's okay, come see me. So they come to Geneva, they were from Paris. And I told them, I said, listen, see my company, it's break even, I'm not selling, because now it has no value, right? Because the valuation is a percentage of your profits. They say, okay, let's do a little intellectual exercise. Do 2 years business plan and do it as optimistic as you can. They say, don't lie, don't take us for fools because we're not idiots, but give us the business plan that's your best case scenario. Okay? So I scratched my head. My brother was working with me, and we made a business plan that basically showed 2.5 million profit in 2 years. So we are in a company that's been losing money for at least 4 or 5 years right now, and we show 2.5 million profit in 2 years. Very, very optimistic. The guy saw my business plan and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to buy your company now based on these 2 years profit. And I'm going to pay you 85% cash, and I'm going to give you 15% earnout. And with my brother, we were like, these guys are crazy. Like, they know it's I was not even cheating them. They know it's a super optimistic business plan. Actually, they were uber smart because they knew something I didn't know at the time. And that's really one of the most important lessons, is this private equity brings tons of value. So they actually included their value in my business plan that I didn't have in my business plan, right? So they say, okay, he thinks he's going to be, he tells me he's going to make 2.5. That means probably he thinks he's going to make 1 million. But I'm going to bring them 4 million because I'm a private equity. I'm going to bring them knowledge. I'm going to bring them contacts. I'm going to bring them strategies. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. So 2 years later, the company is doing 5 million revenue. And exactly what they said, 1 million is my genius and 4 million is their input.
5 million revenue, you mean 5 million
And
profit?
Profit. And out of this 5 million, at least 4 million is their direct input. Because like they gave me a CFO, they taught me how to report. Little sidetrack. All of you run your companies, you're alone. And you take all the decision alone. You can have all the shareholders, associates. At the end of the day, you make all the decision and you don't report to anybody. And that's a big, big, big liability. Suddenly, just the fact that I had to monthly report my number to shareholder, to a boss, de facto, like to a board, but a real board. I had board there. We can put friends on a board, but it's not a real board. A real board can fire you, right? This guy could fire me any day if I didn't deliver. So that gave me focus, that gave me knowledge, and that's exactly what happened. So
Yeah, one of my mentors in the States, Ria Law, she owned a law firm and she never wanted to sell. And she got approached by somebody who was looking to merge, and she was just so reluctant against it to the point where, sorry, it wasn't her law firm. She was working as a partner in a law firm, and she said, I'm going to resign if you guys sell the company. And they said, stick with us for 6 months. And one thing she said is that once they merged to this larger law firm, went from 5 attorneys to 50, she said immediately we had resources that we never realized we needed. And we got access to resources that we always wanted but didn't figure out how to get. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, is that when you get those investors that come in, a lot of granted you're going to come up with new problems, but those resource problems start to evaporate and you have the ability to do those things that you want to do in years past, but you just couldn't do. Is that what you're getting at? Is that the resources were there then?
yeah, not only resources were there, but like you get access to stuff. Like first thing you get access to is unlimited cash. Like you want to make an acquisition, you want to grow, you want to develop a project. As long as you manage to convince your shareholders, you have unlimited cash because these guys have unlimited cash. That's very, very helpful. Yeah. Cash is always very helpful in the business, you'll notice. And this guy has as many as we want. So in 2017, I went to see them and say, okay, now the company is making 21, 22 million, 5 million profit, 25% margin, extremely low growth, right? Because at the time we're doing front office software for private banks. It's super sticky. It's really hard to lose a client, but it's hard to make a new client because it's massive project for the banks and you have competition. And at the time we are, I don't know, like maybe a 250 employee companies, and we're fighting against giants. All the banking software, the private banking software are in Switzerland, and they're all way bigger than we are, like massively bigger. Our main competitor is a company called Temenos, who's on the Swiss stock exchange, whose market value is 5 billion, and that's my competitor. So it's hard to sell it's hard to beat them on a RFP, it's hard to sell a new client. I would sometime because we were more agile and we could do stuff they couldn't do, but at the end of the day, every time they sell, I send one, they sell 10. So it's hard to grow. And I went to see my shareholder and said, there's this company, that's a back office. So if we get to buy that, we have the full suite from back to front, and we can be the only supplier for a bank in theory, if we get that stuff. And they say, go for it. And the company was doing 25 when we were doing 22. And we bought it because they have unlimited cash. Also, we bought it for peanuts because we were lucky. That's the kind of...
Can I ask you to expand? Because you said this over lunch, and this was fascinating. It ties in with what the speaker said this morning. So you say you bought it for peanuts because you were lucky, but what was the context? Why did the seller sell you that so cheap?
Yeah, I said lucky, I meant smart, actually. But I wanted to sound humble. This one, I've been lucky lots of time. But this one, that was smart because this software was owned by a massive American company, like $1 billion company. And this little teeny tiny banking software in Switzerland were doing 25 million. So they basically didn't even know they had it. It's like, and I actually called them and say, hey, you have a software in Switzerland that we would like to buy. And they say, what's Switzerland? So literally, I remember a conversation with the guy say, listen, there's something really shady in that deal because you book in Swiss francs, but you're in Europe. Why aren't you booking in euro? So, well, we have our own country, our own currency. So I called them and they were really not really interested to talk. And then I sent them a couple of articles about leaks in banking software. And I said, you realize that for a 25 million revenue out of your billions of revenue, you're running a very high reputation risk. And they say, okay, where do we sign? And that actually was the reason we bought, and we bought it super cheap because they were worried of there was like Panama Papers and all that kind of leaks and stuff that would actually have, it was a bit exaggerated because with the software, the risk was really low, but still it was a reputational risk. So we actually present that as we're going to help you get rid of a reputational risk. So and then I had when a PE calls a bank and say, I think this deal they needed to borrow, I don't remember the exact number, but I think they had to add 6 in cash and borrow 30 or something like that. It's how cheap it was. So when I call a bank and want to borrow 30 million, it takes a minute. When they call a bank and want to borrow 30 million, we had Credit Suisse. You heard about Credit Suisse probably recently. Credit Suisse and UBS actually competing on the loan. We had both term sheet, and we were having called UBS and say, because I was a Credit Suisse client, but now it doesn't matter so much. And they were UBS clients, so I was called the Credit Suisse and say, hey, my shareholders want to sign with UBS because like you're 10 basis points more expensive. Can you do something? And they're actually competing to lend them the money. That's the kind of situation you are when you're in a private equity.
Yeah. I love this. I know we're going to need to get to questions shortly, but there's another piece of the story that you teased me at lunch that I think these guys would love to hear. Tell us about the other 15%. So, because you sold, so you got 85% in cash and 15% later. So what happened? So the private equity came on board, right? So Alexis sold part of the company and then was able to scale radically. What happened with the other 15%?
Well, they made the mistake, and we had lots of laugh with them about that, is they calculated the earn-out, not like, okay, if you reach 2.5 million, you get 15%. If you reach 1 million, you get 7%. They calculate it as a ratio of the profit, and as the profit was at 5 at that point, I ended up making more with the 15% than with the previous 85%.
I love it. I mean, actually, first of all, that deserves a round of applause by itself.
No, that's okay. This one was pure luck. And,
in which case, let's acknowledge his luck.
and actually told them when the guy he came and he said, "Fuck," you said I'm allowed to swear. He said, "Fuck, I wish I capped the the earn-out." I say, "Yeah, but you cannot blame me for playing better than you in a game where you set the rules." And he said, "Yeah." They were very happy though, because at the end of the day, they made more money. I made lots of more money than I thought, but so did they. So everybody was happy on this one.
So I want everybody in this room just to think about that. When we were talking about this earlier, there's so many nuances and ways that deals can be structured. In this particular example, 85% was taken off the table in cash, but the company grew. The earn-out bit, the bit that you're not expecting to get, etc., or not to count on, ended up making Alexis more money than the original 85%.
Yeah, it's the last year of the earn-out. Me and my friends who are shareholders, we were literally like, we are not eating in a restaurant with the company money. We're not taking a plane ticket, because every time I think we were getting paid like 7 times. So I said, guys, every time you spend $100 of the company money, you lose $700 of your earn-out. So stop spending. So we basically all stopped spending. And the guy in the private equity is now really a close friend. And he said, yeah, what you did is what lots of entrepreneurs do when they sell their companies. You throw the sailors off the boat. You throw all the sailors off the boat, and the boat keeps going. And when you reach your 2 years, then you have to rehire and restart spending. But it was not a hidden strategy. They knew exactly what I was doing, and they knew. And they said, "Oh, like you're really not spending much." I said, "Yeah, you know me. I'm very prudent. I'm very." So all that was really in the open, and everybody was happy, right? It's not like I was stealing money from them. They were super happy.
So, I was just going to ask one last question. But so what next? So what now? So you've had this incredible entrepreneurial journey. You've had an extremely lucrative payday. What's next for you?
So the end of the adventure for me, right? In this company we bought called Apsis, that pretty much doubled the size of the company. Happens to have a guy in there who was the CEO of the company that we hired as the head of sales. So I was the CEO and he was the head of sales. He was 10 years older than me. He had all the contacts and he was way, way, way smarter than me and more qualified than me. This was no question. Like, I was good, he was great. And so I went to see the private equity and said, this guy has to be the CEO. It makes no sense that I'm actually running this guy. He's much better than I am. And they said, okay, I've been chairman for 2 years. And then in 2019, I told them, listen, I want out. I know you're going to sell this company soon, but I had 20 years now in this company, at the head of this company. Said, listen, make me a good offer. Had 15% left, and they made me an incredibly good offer. Like, God bless them. They didn't have to. They went overboard, and I sold the remaining 15% of the company. So since 2019, 2020, I'm retired. So I've been retired for 2 years. I'm 53 now. So my goal was always to retire at 50, and I retired at 50 and 2 months. So that was not bad. I was 2 months late. I've been retired, and Topher, actually, among other people, made me realize that I did this executive MBA in Oxford, which we can discuss the quality of the teaching, but that's for another time. But then I met like lots of entrepreneurs, like young entrepreneurs in this thing, because or wannabe entrepreneurs, or people who are not really happy where they are and they want to become entrepreneurs. And I was like, if I can only like just help them avoid the mistake I made. I have this sentence. It said, if I started New Access with the knowledge I have now, with the experience I have now, I would have sold 5 years earlier and 50 million more. So that's the value of the experience I acquire. I think it's 50 million. And I say, if I can help any of these guys, and that's why I went into this. So first, I wanted to be a coach, and doesn't work, because when you're a coach, you're not allowed to give your opinion, right? And my time without being able to give my opinion on any topic is around 45 seconds, right? So that's sitting with something and somebody taking him by the hand, and he said, what do you think? And I'll go, well, you do that, and that, and your problem is solved. But that's not what a coach does. So I'm now mentor, which is not a great name, or special advisor to the CEO. I work only with CEOs. I do not work with anybody else in the company. I work either directly with the CEO, which is my preference in pre-private equity, but as I have a lot of contact with private equity, I know them all, I also get hired with private equity. Private equity have a problem, always, pretty much almost always, is they don't want to change management. They hate changing management because it's a risk and they hate risk. All their business is based on risk, so adding a level of risk is not good for them. But very often they have CEOs that are like just not good enough, but not bad enough to be changed. Yeah. So I step in and I help, and that's usually short mandates. And like I help the CEO. I pretty much sit and say, "Hey, I'm like, don't think me as a guy from the PE. I'm the guy who's gonna help you not get fired by the PE." But that's my least favorite thing to do, because I value relationship, and it's much easier when the CEO hires me than when it's the PE who hires me.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good jumping off point for questions.
Yeah, all right. So I've got the catch box here. I believe it's working. Yeah, all right, cool. So what questions y'all have for Alexis? We'll pass them around, and believe me, no harm if you don't have questions, because we've got 25 more. So, what, no questions? No questions, huh? No questions. Here we go. Joanna. There we go.
That's fantastic. It's the first time I've ever heard it put that way. Not having private equity, you said, is a liability because you've got no one to be accountable to, which totally flipped things in my mind. We were having this conversation before lunch of not wanting to, be accountable. Why would you want to do that? But I'd never seen it phrased as a liability. So my question is, for all of those reasons that we sometimes imagine getting involved with investors is problematic, strategic direction, all of that kind of stuff. Did you have conflict, and how did you handle it?
Very good question. Tons. Basically, your shareholder and you are very much in alignment. You want the same thing, right? You want to grow the company to have a better exit. There is two things that your interests actually diverge a little bit. One is timing. A private equity, most of the time, is a closed time investment. So I got super lucky. I got in at the very beginning of the fund. So I know they had 10 years to sell, which means de facto they have 7, because the last 2-3 years are focused on, I call it dressing the bride, which is make the company pretty to sell. So basically I know I had 7 years with them, which is a lot. And sometimes you want to do stuff that are more than 7 years and you can't. So that's the one that's, if you have 20 years plan, private equity is not good for you. That's one thing. And also the other sticking point is sometimes you need to invest. And when you need to invest, sometimes you need to purposely lower your EBITDA. Because like suddenly you want to take $1 million of profit and put it in a project that's going to pay in 3 years. And they hate that. They hate lowering the EBITDA for 2 reasons. One is the loan they take from the bank is usually a covenant of the loan is the EBITDA. So if your EBITDA dips, even if it's on purpose, it's an uncomfortable conversation with the bank. It's not the end of the world, because banks never apply covenants because they don't want to, they don't care, they trust the private equity. And the other one is these guys are actually managing investors' money. So every year they have to report of the company, and they love to show everything. I for the private equity, I did one of their presentation, and I like the way they present the company to the investors compared to the way the company actually is. It's very, very creative presentation. Like one of the company in the portfolio was a shit show. They were losing. It was a 2 million per year revenue and 1 million per year loss. It was like complete shit show. And they had when they presented the company, they had green light, orange light, red light, and this one was orange. And I asked them, what do you need to get red? They say, oh, we don't do red. So that's the 2 point of friction. And also sometimes you're 2 human beings, because you have usually 2 contacts. One is your week-to-week contact, and one is your monthly contact. One is usually the GP of the private equity in charge of your company. So my weekly contact is really now he's a close friend, and we very rarely disagree. But the GP was extremely smart and incompatible with me on a human level. He was somebody who valued only money, and I'm somebody who valued only humans. So we were incompatible. So we had fights and say, you have to fire these 5 people there. And I'd say, I don't want to fire them. Say, yeah, but you have to. Because they're not producing. And at the end of the day, it turns out like at least 90% of the time where we were disagreeing, he was right and I was wrong. Because
I'll dig a little deeper on that one then, because I think one of the big reasons why I think so many entrepreneurs are afraid to bring in private equity is because they're afraid that somebody's going to tell them what to do. This is my baby, I've run it my way, and I don't want somebody coming in and telling me how to run my business. Right. And you, especially as opinionated as you are, how did you negotiate that in your mind and because that had to have been like you had to have stopped and gone, okay, well, wait a minute, how much of this is my ego, how much is this right? Because you just said the guy was 90%, he was right. That had to have been a hard pill for you to swallow. How do you address that? How did you negotiate that in your head?
So first of all, if you sell to a private equity, it's not going to tell you how to run your company. It's going to tell you how to run his company. It's not your company anymore. Like you own 25% of the company, it's his company. Yeah. So suddenly you're working for him. That you have something you have to accept. You're selling your company. The other case, when you bring a private equity to 25% and you get external money, that's a very different proposition. It's still your company. Mm-hmm. But keep in mind that if this guy buys your company, it's because he believes in you. Private equity, especially at that stage, at LBO, at leverage buyouts, where you buy the founder out, they believe in you. They don't want to change you. It's not what they want to do. Wow. Like, it's bad for them to have to do that. That means they made a mistake, right? So that's one thing. And then I'm opinionated. Some people say I'm a bit cocky, but I knew that I started this company with 2 employees. When they sold it, it had 450. I didn't have any of the skills to run a 450 people company. Like I didn't have proper studies. I didn't go to a business school. I didn't have any of the skills. So pretty much every day for me was a prototype. So I was just doing my best. But these guys tremendously helped me, like no question.
Interesting. Yeah. All right.
You're not threatened. It's an opportunity.
All right.
Thank you very much for the knowledge today. You said you failed many times. What has been the secret to keeping your eye on the prize?
Keep me sorry.
So, what's kept you going even through that failure?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure I can answer it precisely. Pride. Pride was a big part of it. Nobody likes to fail. At some point, I didn't have many more options, to be honest, because I had no more money. My house was mortgaged. I didn't have that many other options. Also, I cannot be an employee. I'm really, really bad at it. I have a big issue with authority. And also, there's nothing I know how to do. Seriously, like a CEO is absolutely useless in any other role. I'm mediocre at all the jobs, right? I could be a mediocre CTO, maybe, could be an average sales manager, definitely not a COO, like I wouldn't do a week. What do I do? Like, well, and I was thinking, like, when I sold the company, do I get a job? But like, you see the ads, like, oh no, I cannot do that. I cannot. What can I do? And nobody like said hiring CEO, right? So like, there's nothing I know how to do really. Like, so I didn't have many choice, I guess. And also I believed in it. I don't know why I believed in it. And do you know what I think? I think the real reason, the deepest reason, is my employees. Like, I'm going to share you something a little personal because it's something you might be facing. I've had tough times, but these are nothing. But twice in my life, I had to fire 20 people on the same day. Honestly, never again. And that's the reason I'm never going to be a CEO ever or an entrepreneur ever again. I can't do that anymore. Literally, like, send my brother to the hospital. Literally, he developed meningitis, and I barely survived that. Oh. And like this moment when, and these guys were my friends, right? The first one was okay because you kind of, horrible thing to say, but you kind of trim the fat. You fire people that are not that very good. Second time, I had to fire really good people. Friends, guys who were with me from the beginning, girls who were like, I've been working, and I've been like, they came to my house once a year with their kids, like we are a family. And you have to sit them in a room and say, you're all fired. And that's like, that's the motivation for the one who stays, say you cannot do that. Because you know, like if you fold the company, they all get fired, right? And they get nothing. So yeah, that's probably, I'd say, the main reason that kept me working with.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Alexis. So my question is around when you said that you went down the private equity route. You said that they were 2 guys that had come from tech and set up this private equity firm. And as a SaaS business owner, looking at brokers and PE and so on, I wondered, how important do you regard the industry-specific knowledge, like the fact they're in SaaS or whatever, versus sort of broader business? And it sounds like you didn't get loads of options of other private equity that you could work with. Given your experience now, how much weight would you put to the importance of that? So if you're advising another SaaS business owner, would you be saying, yeah, you need to be speaking to loads and be really focused, they need to be SaaS? Does it need to be even more specific than that?
Very good question. These guys were fintech. They only do fintech. In retrospect, I would say the business and market knowledge of the PE is pretty minor. Okay. And I realized that now that I work as an advisor. The CEO knows the market. He doesn't need me. I didn't need them to know my market. So I'd say minor. I'd say major is the relationship you can develop with these guys. So if at some point in your life you get to, I want to choose which PE, well, first of all, that's mean you're really in a really, really good place if you can choose among different PEs. But choose the one who you have a good relationship with. Choose the one who, I think they all want to help you grow, but choose the one that you're comfortable fighting with. And we fought, like we had like,
Oh, say that again. Say that again.
yeah, you
Choose the one you feel comfortable.
fighting with. Because you're gonna fight with them. You're gonna disagree, and 90% of the fights you're gonna lose. Because at the end, he's the boss. You're the employee. So you've been employees, right? When you want to sell something to your boss, you have to actually sell it. And more time than less, you lose that fight. So you have to be comfortable with that. It's his company, it's not yours anymore. That's something like I keep telling that to my staff. Say, wow, why don't you let him do that? And that's about, it's his company. I don't let him do that. He lets me come to work every day. He pays me to come to work. It's his company. It's not mine anymore. And that's really, it's harder for the staff to realize that than it is for you. Like, why do you let him treat you like that? It's his company.
We were at lunch, we were talking, I think this was the, thank you. I forget when it was in the timeline, but I think it was when you bought, for 17 million, you bought the software company, the back-end software, but it wasn't fully developed, and you thought there was gonna be about an 18-month sales cycle, and turns out you started selling it within like 3 months. Could you tell that story? Because I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, that's...
In that, it's like in the world of entrepreneurship, one of our biggest mistakes, I think, is that we never think we're ready, or we don't care.
I'm going to answer that, but first of all, I'm going to tell you a story about another entrepreneur, friend of mine. I talked about this company called Temenos. Temenos in 1995 was basically bankrupt. It had 5 clients. It wasn't worth nothing. And it got bought for $1 by a Greek entrepreneur. Name is George Koukis. He looks like me. Shorter and fatter, but apart from that, he really, and he's 10 years older now, but he's like fat, bearded, loves food, loves wine, party guy. He bought this company and he's sat all his C-level of the company in a room. And he said, okay, so now we're going to sell. We're going to sell this product. I'm going to sell this product like maniac. And your job is going to be to deliver what I sell. And you don't tell me what to sell, I tell you what to deliver. Are you comfortable with that? And the CTO, the head of development, he said, he said, George, I'm super comfortable with that. Just so you know, at our capacity, we can deliver 3 per year, and stretching, working during the weekend, we might be able to deliver 5. So as long as you don't sell more than 5, I'm with you. And George said, you pack your stuff, you're fired. Somebody else have something to say about delivery?
Wow.
He sold 30 the first year. 30 banking software in 1995, the first year, all around the world. He's been in 10 lawsuits still since this time because there's no way he could deliver. That specific software though, but not really. Sell, get new client, sell, and then get customer satisfaction at any cost. Lose money your first 10 years, it's okay. Lose money on the project, at the end of the day it's gonna pay. But you sell, you sell, you sell. So to answer your question, 2006, I developed for my clients a full front for a client in private bank. So private bank, I don't know who's aware what a private bank is. It's basically a place where wealthy people come to hide money, either from crime or from their tax authorities. That's what Swiss offshore private banking is. They name it differently, they make it look pretty, but basically that's what it is. So up until 2005-06, they could do that. Literally, you could come to your bank with a suitcase full of cash. You have this image. Up until maybe earlier than that, 2000, you could still do that. You could still open a bank account without giving your ID. Now all that is over. And that started really to be over at the beginning of the 2000 and 2005, where they get hit by what they call compliance, KYC, know your customer, anti-money laundering, all that stuff that they hate because it makes them harder to be a crook. They still manage pretty well, but it's more difficult. It's getting more technical. And they needed a software that helped them to do all that. So I said, cool, I'm going to develop that. I spent a year like doing, like building the walls, and I'll put the painting later, right? And I went to sell it. And in software industry, especially, we're talking like none of our software sell for less than $1 million. So we're talking about long sales cycles, like 1 year, 2 years sales cycle. So my plan was super smart again. I'm going to the market, and it's going to take 2 years to sell. While my sales guy are selling, we're going to finish the product. But we sold 6 of them in the first 2 months. So I was properly screwed. Like in one hand, I was trying to finish the product, other hand, trying to install it. But that's really software specific. Nobody goes to market with a finished product. If they say the product is ready, they lie. It never. You need to go to the market before the product is finished. So, but yeah. Great. Fun times. Lots of golf, rounds of golf and dinner with clients, apologetic dinner with clients. All the stuff that I promised to you by the end of the year. Was I really clear on what year we were discussing? So, yeah.
I've got a Corey. There might be a question up there.
Is there a question up here?
So in that case, I've got a follow-up question. Alexis, so back to private equity. In the last session, we were talking about playing the equity game. I'm curious. So I brought a friend of mine here, and for those that know Simon, why did I develop that relationship? He was a GP, a private equity firm, and so he knows everybody in private equity. So how can I get connect with the person that knows everybody, right? He's introduced me to so many people and investments because of that relationship. That's why you're in this room. Not necessarily private equity, but there's people in this room that have connections in any field, right? That's how you've all got to meet Alexis, because you're here. But the question I'd love for you to answer is, when should these guys think about raising money?
Now? Yesterday.
And why? Why? Some of them are sat there going, why? I don't want to bring on a...
Well, you're all sitting there, so you all think you can do something better or bigger than what you're doing right now. If not, you wouldn't waste time and money to be in there. So, 2 things you should get way earlier than you think. It's external money and acquisitions. Go buy stuff. There's lots of stuff to buy. Go buy stuff and go get outside money. And to comment on your relationship thing. Relationships are not hard. Private equity are not hidden. Private equity want to give you their money. So if you want to talk to private equity, you give me a call, you send me an email, I can do something that you cannot do, which is dry runs. I love dry runs. A private equity, when you want a private equity, you're going to call him, he's going to come talk to you, and then you're going to have a deck and show him your deck, and he's going to like your deck or not. But that's a one-shot gun, right? You shoot that, and if he doesn't like your deck, you're never working with this private equity. What I bring to my clients is I do dry runs. I have friends in private equity, which is a completely different relationship. You sit with the guy and say, listen, I have this company. This is the parameters. What do you think? What should I put in the deck? And the guy will tell me, listen, come see me in a year because I would like to have that better. Or say, this thing is not for us, it's too risky, or it's not risky enough, go see this other guy. So this dry run you get from relationship. At the end of the day, private equity are suppliers, right? You're the client, they're your suppliers. That's what they're selling. They're selling investment to the clients. So it's like if you want to build a new car, you don't need tons of relationship to get your new car. You go to a car seller, a car dealership. The private equity are money dealerships. That's what they do. You're their client. So it's not that hard to get access to private equity. It helps when you know how to interact with them. More than the relationship, there's a bit of knowledge on, okay, I have a secret. I'm sorry, it's going to be on camera, but they are very, very dumb. They are not very smart because they are very narrow-minded. So they're kind of not that hard to play. For instance, they have one thing, they have buzzword. So every year the buzzword in the private equity business is different. Like 2 years ago, you said fintech, and you double the value. Now you say medtech, you double the value. Starting now, you say AI, you double the value. So now you have like, I don't know, like AI-powered masonry company, or like because people are smart, or like, oh yeah, I have my front-end bank is AI-powered. Where is your AI? Well, it's a software, so it's AI. Like, you know, so buzzword and knowing what they like, what they don't like, but it's pretty simple. It's not very complicated. They're not that smart. I'm talking about the small ones, though. When you get to deal with the Citadel of the world, the guy who managed like literally tens of billions, these guys are smarter. And we did, when we did around selling new access, and we had the big guys in the room, they're smart as hell. They're really, really smart. The buzzword thing, that's not going to work with them. But yeah, it's not that complicated. And access is easy. Knowledge is a bit harder. Access is easy.
All right, here's perhaps an unanswerable or unfair question, but what's the smallest size company that a private equity firm would be looking into?
100,000 revenue.
Excuse me?
Yeah, you have VCs. You know what? Zero. You have VCs that come. So basically,
I was not expecting that. I was expecting at least something more than that.
P 101. Super boring. You probably all know that, but you have a certain number of rounds. First round is friend of family. When you start your company, you take your mommy's money or your brother's money or your friend's money. Next round, if you need, you have a seed round, which is still like somewhere in between friends and family. You can have a first VC round, which is basically your company is still not making any revenue, zero revenue, but you start to have a product. So all this part is the part I never knew. It's the startup part of funding. But when you are real like companies that makes profit, the first round you can do a Series A, which is you make revenue, but you're still losing money. So that's a round you get also from a VC. And then you get to the round of private equity, proper private equity, which is they're buying future revenue. And to buy future revenue, most private equities, not all, but most will want a company that's already profitable, even if it's a little bit. But you have very small private equity. You have private, like if your company make 100,000 and 10,000 profit, then your company is worth 100,000. So is it at that moment you want to sell your company? Probably not. But it might be at the moment where you want to sell 25% of your company for 50,000 because that's going to help you. So any size, 1 million is a more realistic number. Yeah. I mean, you'll get private equity before that, but I'm not sure private equity is a good idea before that. Depends.
Right. Let's talk before that then, because your expertise isn't just in private equity. You're a hell of a businessman. What do you think are some of the bigger challenges that just business owners, a small business owner, faces on a consistent basis, and what are some strategies to help battle those fights?
Okay, it's all depend on the stages of your company. I have one motto. That's one that's written on my desk. Is do not confuse what's urgent with what's important. And that's, of all of you in your stage, I can guarantee you're facing with that problem.
Yes.
Do not confuse what's urgent with what's important. And it's hard. I'm not saying like, oh, you're idiots because you do it. It is hard. Like your supplier calls and he wants his money now and you don't have the money to pay him. And your client is calling and he wants his chairs delivered and you don't have the chairs finished. All that is very, very urgent. But it's not important. What's important is how you grow, how you get better. So the key to that is delegate. Delegate, delegate, delegate. And you know what? If you're a 2-people company, delegate that to the other guy. If you're a 1-people company, you're screwed. You need to get to 2 to be able to delegate. So that's the number one thing. Do not confuse what's urgent with what's important. It is hard, but it is key. If not, you're going to spend your whole life putting out fires. Because that's the entrepreneur's job, right? Yeah. Actually, it's not. Entrepreneur's job is to think what's the next move. That's your job as an entrepreneur. Not as a CEO, because somebody has to do the job. But as an entrepreneur, your job is vision, right? Your job is where you're going. Second point, assess your company at every stage, like once a year, once every 2 years, once at every milestone, assess, get a proper assessment of your company. And that's, I think it's, if not impossible, almost impossible for you to do. So that's when you buy people to do. Don't go to PricewaterhouseCoopers and spend $200,000 to get that. Get somebody to come and assess your company.
When you say assess, are you saying evaluation?
Evaluate.
Yeah, okay.
Evaluate where you go. Do a SWOT analysis. Have somebody do a proper SWOT analysis of your company. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like a business thing. But yeah, do something. Hire somebody to tell you, you're good there, you're good there, you're bad there, you're bad there. And that's really, really help. And that, dress the bride. Get ready for outside money. Like, it's the out, right? There is no other out. Unless you want to go public at some point, that's the out. And to get that, like, acquire, grow, and get outside money.
So I have a motto that I'll share with you that complements yours when you're talking about what's important versus what's urgent. In that you look at stuff that's urgent, and sometimes you just have to let the chips fall where they may. That's what chips are supposed to do. And oftentimes I think business owners way overestimate the downside of what happens if they do just let the chips fall. And sometimes what we think has to be addressed doesn't have to be addressed that day. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And also you're going to have to, it's trade-off, right, your job. Do I focus on customer satisfaction? Do I focus on revenue? Do I focus on growth? It's like every single decision will have impact and none of them will be perfect.
Yeah.
Like, would I hire that guy, which is going to give me more customer satisfaction but less EBITDA? Or would I fire that guy, but then how the hell do I maintain customer satisfaction? Or every single decision has this trade-off. And actually, it's very simple. It's way, way more simple than you think. There's one thing that matters, not that many, customer satisfaction. All the rest is, it's going to come. You're losing money, just find money. But one thing, customer satisfaction. Because at the end of the day, if people don't buy your shit, you're not going to be successful. It's that simple. All the rest can be fixed. Like, told you the stories of George. Like, he was never going to survive that. 10 lawsuits and everybody. But he sold, and at the end of the day, customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction. Took him 10 years to get to that level of customer satisfaction, but that's the only thing that matters, at least at the beginning. Then the focus shifts a little bit. If you look at Facebook, they really don't go for customer satisfaction anymore. They don't need it. I think they're wrong, but that's another conversation.
Well, it depends who you define as their customer. Are you talking about the end user or the people that
no,
are
the
paying
end
ads?
user is not the customer,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
the product.
Yeah. So you say that they're
not
not
looking-
even satisfying the customers that are paying.
No, I don't think so. But like customer satisfaction is important, right? But look at Microsoft. It was never their product is pretty much shit. Everybody knows it. But their focus was leadership, was being on top there. And then you don't need customer satisfaction so much because you're in a quasi-monopolistic. But all that are extreme situation. At the end of the day, what makes you grow, what gives you new market, and what keeps you alive is customer satisfaction.
You mentioned a while back, you said that if you knew back then what you knew now, you would have sold your company 5 years earlier and for 50 million more.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, though, that that's a regret. That just means there's a distinction. But do you have any, like, are there any things where you sit there and go, fuck, man, wish I wouldn't have done that? Like, like for example, you're a brand new dad, right? Just had your daughter.
Oh, you said, I wish I haven't done my new baby? Yeah, but that's
no. It's
too late now.
No. But like you've had one whole, you've already raised a generation, right? You've got 2 other kids. And you had mentioned earlier that, there was that tough time when you were working 14, 16, 17-hour days, ignoring your family. Do you, I don't want to say is there a regret there, but do you have strategies now that would have made you do that better?
I could top of my head list 150 decisions that I wish I hadn't taken. Yeah, of course. But there's no better side than hindsight, right?
Yes.
It's easy. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is I really want to, people avoiding doing that. like make better decisions.
Yes, okay, so like the entrepreneurs here who have their first family that they're raising now and they're faced with working those long hours, what would you tell them?
Oh, that's very private. But the way I dealt with that is like I would go in the office in the morning after the kids go to school or wherever they go, and I will always go back home by 6, have dinner with them, put them in bed, and then go back to the office. So my work day was actually like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. So that's the way I managed it. So actually my kids got to know me. So I was pretty much unless I was traveling, and I was traveling a lot, obviously, but when I was in Geneva, every night I had dinner with them, and same with the Sunday, you only work part of the Sunday. I tried not to work on Saturday, because like Jewish. But I tried.
Jew-ish?
Never happened. Yeah, ish.
Ish? Heavy on the ish, less on the Jew?
More on the ish than on the Jew, yeah. But like we're trying to have Saturday as a family day, but yeah, and I want to say work smart, not don't work hard, but that's bullshit. Yeah. Like at the beginning, you have to work like. Yeah. I do something like when I was an active CEO, you have very often like you probably all get that. It's like the kid of the 16-year-old kid of friends who come and say, "Oh, what do I need to do to be a successful entrepreneur?" And I always do that because I love kids making their own mind and say, "This is a Fortune 500." They have the list of the 500 companies. Go check the owners or the CEOs of this company and come back and tell me what they have in common. It's very tricky.
Yeah. Jensen, you've got your next assignment now.
What do they have in common, the CEOs? Do you have an idea? Like the CEOs or the owner of the 500 companies, Fortune 500. Because they all come from different backgrounds. Some of them have PhDs. Some of them start with manual labor. Yeah. The answer is they all work 16 hours a day, pretty much. There is no shortcut. You cannot be an entrepreneur and not work. That doesn't work. Yeah. That's why I never be an entrepreneur anymore. I don't want to work 16 hours. Yeah. No, I'm very clear. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm too old.
Yeah. Amazing. Any other questions? Alexis is much like us. He could just sit here and ask you questions for the next hour as well.
It's fine. I'm paid by the hour, so take all the time in the world.
Keep going. Not by me, though.
Not by anyone.
You mentioned that one of your special skills is merging teams together, and particularly for those of us in the room that are looking at acquisitions and so on. What would you say are some of the key things that you need to get right when you're bringing teams together in terms of, maybe particularly if they've got different ways of working, different, maybe different culture, what are the key things that you look for when you're doing the acquisition? Because presumably, if it's too different, you just can't make it work. But then, how do you then make it work once you decide?
First of all, like in most human interaction, you have to make very, very, very clear what's happening. So it is not a merger, it is an acquisition. Company A is buying company B. Company B is being acquired. We are your new bosses. Never lie, never sugarcoat it. That's the number one. Be strictly honest. So if there are redundancy, we're going to look in priority in company B, because company A is buying, right? Make things really, really clear. Be as honest as you can from day one. You and you are doing the same job. Can we make you do something else? What else would you like to do? Be super, super honest. Understand the dynamic of the company you buy. Understand who are the moral leaders. It is not the same as the bosses. Understand the guy who's been doing the same job for 30 years, who's not very important in the organigram, but who's the guy who's bringing the beer in the outside tab, who's the guy that has the experience, has the memory of the company. Value that guy. Every company has a few, right? The guys they've been there 30 years, they know everything, they know everybody. Make this guy your friend. You know what? Hire him and give him the job of facilitate the merger. He knows everyone. He knows everything in the company. Do the same in your company. Find a guy who and get a team. Get a team to do that, and try to get to the knowledge of the company. Understand what people really want. Like, you'll have to fire people when you do a merger, because that's where you value a merger. Do it immediately, as soon as you can. And then talk to the other guys. And you say, that's done. Now you don't need to be scared. I apologize that your friend got fired. That's what a merger is. Get it done. And especially, but that's an advice I give pretty much all the time. Never lie. Never lie. You'll get caught. If you tell them, oh, we're going to fire 20 people and you end up firing 40, they will never trust you. Like kids. Never lie to kids. They're not dumb. They know. They know there's no monster is going to come in the middle of the night to pick them up if they don't finish their dessert, right? It's the same. Never lie. And identify the key people that are not necessarily the one you think before at the beginning. Does that answer your question? Sounds very empiric, but I don't think there is a proper method to do it.
No, it does. I think that's really good. I think the additional part I'd have of that is, so when you've got, let's say you've got two businesses that you bring together, and particularly where they've got different ways of doing things. So if you've got, one group sells in a particular way and another one does it completely differently, I appreciate there's going to be some duplication, and so you've got the people pit. How do you then pick? Do you do it then going, well, I know what the metrics say and therefore we're adopting this? Obviously some people say, oh, but I've been doing it this way. How do you get people to make those shifts?
Difficult, because there is basically two ways of doing it. One is to keep the company separate and slowly merger. And when you do that, you merge from the tech in general, because that's easier to merge than the sales and the admin. I tend to merge immediately. The last one was the really difficult one, right? Because it was 250 in a company, 150 in another one. And New Access, we had our development center in Singapore. They had the development center in Tunisia. And you can very difficult to imagine more cultures more different than Singapore and Tunisia. It's really hard. And there was Swiss German, we were French speaking German, and other very different culture shock. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who buys. So pretty much you do what I tell you to do. And try to merge teams that have stuff in common. Like the developers, they work on different products and different languages, but they are developers. So they value and understand each other's job. That's easier. Same with the service people. They interact with the client together, so make them work together. Say, you come from product A, you're going to learn product B because we need redundancy. You're from product B, you're going to learn product A. And then they become friends. That's the way. But it's difficult. And get help. It's one of the things, get outside help. Get people who know how to do that. It's difficult. It's not trivial.
Brilliant. Thank you.
All right. Any last questions?
I've got one.
Yep.
So I just want to say, you were asked if you had any last questions. So none of this, oh, I didn't get to ask my question bullshit. Okay?
Technically, Lori did raise her hand.
Damn it. Okay.
Oh, wait, hang on.
Also, while you throw the stuff, I guess you give them my email. If you have, I'm going to hang around for another half an hour. So if you want to ask questions, just come and see me. I'll be outside smoking probably. And you have my email, right? Remember, I do that to help people. So if you have any question, if you want any help, just send me an email. I'm not going to charge you for that. So anytime you
I'll send it to y'all in text.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's just about the culture merging. Have you got a book or any piece of advice on how you could learn how to get better at that? I don't know if that's an easy question or not.
Can I get back to you with that?
Of course.
Because
Yeah.
I have the couple of books I used are all in French. So I have to do a little research to answer that. So it's a good question. I'm not I never really read book on how to do stuff, but that's a mistake. It's not something I advise. I wish I did. I wish I was like Topher, who read all the books. Topher, you know Topher, he read all the books. So you talk to him about it, you say, I read it. And like, he's helped me.
Dan crushes me. He reads probably twice as much, 3 times as much as I do.
It's true.
Ridiculous. He was ranked the 3rd fastest reader in the world when he was, what, 19, 18?
Yeah, a long time ago.
But thank you. Yeah.
But I'll get back to you. Topher,
You bet.
you'll follow up with me because I will forget.
So final question for me, Alexis. You encourage everybody to buy stuff. There's lots of stuff to buy. Buy stuff. Okay, some people in here might go, I get the concept. Any top tips? How would you advise if they're sat there going, okay, I get the idea, I could buy other companies. All right, how did you find the potential? You did 5 acquisitions. There are probably many more where you metaphorically dated, but you didn't consummate the deal. Where did you find these acquisitions, or how would you recommend the people in this room go about finding?
First of all, that's a good question. Very good question. First of all, you choose what to buy. Basically, you could buy many stuff, but the main one is you buy a client list, right? So let's say you're a company who build houses, and you buy a company that build houses, and you just double your client list. That's one type of acquisition. In my experience, it very rarely works. And especially in software, it doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work because you're buying your competitor, and for 10 years you've been see your clients and say, do not buy my competitor because their product is shit. Oh, by the way, I bought the competitor. Now their product is great. So that's tricky. And also, sometimes you have a massive functional overlap, right? If you buy a product that does basically the same thing that you do, so you have to basically take all the existing customers and put them on your product, because you don't want to keep 2 products that do the same thing. And that's super tricky, because then the client say, okay, anyway, I have to change products. Let's go have a look at what's there on the market. And that's been a case of a massive, massive cause of failure. What I think you need to buy is buy the stuff you don't know how to do. That's what I've been doing my whole life. So if you build windows, buy somebody who builds roofs, and then suddenly you are windows and roof guy, right?
It's complementary rather than
100%. Complementary, vertical, if you can, vertical. Like you build windows, buy somebody who builds glasses, because then you cut your costs.
yeah, the supply chain. Yeah.
So buy vertical, buy complementary, and be careful when you buy client list. Be really careful. So that's what to buy. Then what to choose, how to buy. Try to buy cheap. Try to look for companies that are badly run. That's been my tactic my whole life. Most companies are badly run. They're not hard to find. Talk to clients. Say, oh God, they suck. Good. That's interesting. Why do they suck? Oh, their client service suck. Good. Most companies' client service suck. Easy win, right? It's not built in the price. It never is. The company you want to buy make 1 million profit, but they make 2 with a better client service. It's never in the price. Buy companies that don't have everything built in the price. That's what the stock action people do all the time, right? They fail all the time, but they try to do that. Try to see stuff that's not built in the price. Like, that's how we bought Apsys, the last one. The reputational risk was not in the price. I put it in the price. That's like, find stuff that are not priced. It's easy.
Outstanding.
And buy international, sorry. Buy outside of your comfort zone. Buy international. That's another thing. Like, if you build windows in the UK, go buy a window company in France with one absolute rule: never buy in Italy. You're not ready yet. No, seriously, you're not ready yet. It's possible, and you have very, very good deal, but you need to have both 5 before you buy the first Italian one. Never buy in Italy, never buy in Israel. Remember my advices. Not yet.
Alexis, this was amazing. I'm so grateful for you to come out and give us your time and your wisdom. Would you all please give him a wonderful round of applause?